Before we begin today's episode, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the situation with Hurricane Helene. If you don't know, I am a resident in North Carolina, if you're watching from out of state, and a substantial number of people that I am close to have been affected by Hurricane Helene, as well as countless others. Some of the people in my play group with Pokemon, some of even family members, my brother-in-law and his wife. I'm leaving some links below in the description on YouTube, and I guess in the show notes or description section on Spotify. These are places that you can donate. These are local places and not big organized things, so that you know your money is going directly to Hurricane Helene relief. It's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, and ask that if you do have the spare means, that you would consider donating to that cause for rebuilding Western North Carolina and just the Southeast as a whole. Thank you, and enjoy the show. You are listening to N21FM, a Pokemon TCG podcast. I'm your host, Glenn, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Andy, who is a good friend at the local scene, regular player at the store I judge at, and overall great dude. Andy, welcome to the show. How are you? I'm doing just fine, man. A little sleepy. We're recording early in the morning this week as opposed to my usual nighttime recording session, and it's kind of thrown me for a loop. But I'm surviving. I'm doing okay. I'll get some caffeine in me later, and I'll be all right. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Andy. I wanna hear about your life, you as a person.
So, in general,
Yeah.
I have been a Pokédad now for a couple years, and got into playing the game because my son had some social and anxiety issues, and we found a local game store. He got into collecting the cards, and then we found a local game store, and he wanted to try out the Kids League, so I became very involved in that, making sure that continued to be available to him as an outlet for all the things that he enjoys to do.
Nice. That's great. So what's your relationship with the game been like then? Because I'm sure that's a little different.
It was very new to me. I was graduating from college when Pokemon became a thing, when it first came out, so it was not in my scope of things to do. But then when my son really got into it, I said, all right. He decided wanted to start playing pretty competitively, started playing at some regionals and stuff. And so as a way to support him, I started doing all the research online and putting together all the top meta decks that I could find and starting to learn how to play them so that I could play against him to try and make him be a better player.
Wow. That's a lot of commitment, man. That's really admirable. What did that look like? What were some of those resources? Were you using just like Limitless or something like that, or? Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff I found on between Twitter or X and all the stuff I saw at the local game scene, like at our local stores or multiple places that we were going to. You know, I researched. They had a couple of decks of the deck list coming out, and then I just started searching YouTube and searching everywhere to try and find everything that I could to learn as much as possible about playing the game.
Gotcha.
He started out playing a deck with Shadowrower Calyrex, and that's what he played to his first Charlotte Regionals. It was definitely not a meta deck, and he got destroyed. And but he was doing really well locally, so it was hard to really kind of comprehend. I had the help of a couple other dads that are local that helped me run the current league that he plays in. And while we were doing that, I kind of got some more ideas and then saw what everybody was playing there and kind of went through and learned a whole lot the first experience 2 years ago at Charlotte. And then we just kind of moved on from there.
Interesting. So did you have any prior experience with TCGs or did you just kind of have to dive into the deep end?
100% thrown in the deep end really quickly.
Wow. That's really, really surprising and impressive too, because I've seen the way you and your son both play, and you're extraordinarily good for like having like not any kind of background in that. Like, that's really cool that you're able to like do what you guys do. without that prior, like, at least familiarity with the game as a whole, or like the game idea as a whole. So that's really cool. So you said it's been kind of like 2 years running. How do you deal with some of those challenges when you see those results, like, oh, like he's crushing it locally, but when we go to something big, there's that disappointment of like, this isn't working. How do you kind of deal with that? And are there other challenges that are tough to deal with, or like how do you navigate some of those other challenges when it comes to what it's like being a parent, but also like understanding that your child wants to compete? Because it's a little different when a child is competing in like a TCG where there's like a lot of agency over how you do mentally, as compared to like a sport like soccer where it's just like you just got to work harder.
Yeah, he basically, the way we've approached it is trying to help him understand that like there is some variability in the game, and there's a lot of luck in how you draw or what happens, and trying to make sure that we look at how he's playing, what he's playing, and helping him make the best choices as we go on. And lots of times it'll be a week where, like, for example, he's been playing Reggie Drago for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. He'd been playing it before Stellar Crown came out.
Yeah.
And looking at what happened for the week and saying, okay, well, you're really comfortable with this deck, but you're seeing your really struggle matchup is Charizard at our local one. And, you really want to try and take on that kid. So we teched in like Iron Leaves like 3 months ago, before that ever popped up in the competition in Japan. And so we had teched that in just for our local scene for him. And then trying to manage his expectations. Like, 1 week it might be really great and he might draw really well and handle everything really well. And then trying to handle those ebbs and flows emotionally so that he can hit that high but not get destroyed by the low as it comes through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he had a really hard time when we went to Orlando last year. He hit, out of his 8 matches, he hit 5 mirror matches.
Oh, man.
And it was like, okay, you just have to understand, like, you do the best you can and you pull out all the stops that you can pull out, and you just understand that that's pretty much a 50-50 deal unless there's something really different about your deck. And we kind of just worked through that, and he handled it really well. He made it through the day. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks for him on how to handle his emotional stuff and having something for him to get away with in between rounds, and trying to give him a distraction that takes off the thought of how that last round went before he gets excited to go play the next round.
Wow, that's really cool.
So, yeah, it was actually one of his friends, one of the kids he was playing with helped me out at Charlotte last year. He was struggling really hard in between rounds because it was not going well. And it wasn't anything about how he was playing so much as how he was drawing was really, he was struggling with that.
Super disheartening.
He was bricking multiple games in a row.
Oh, man.
And one of his friends, he does not have a phone, but one of his friends had a phone and gave him like a really simple like amusement game, and he played it in between rounds, and all of a sudden he could turn his attitude around in between rounds. Rather than struggling emotionally, he was able to function. And so he'd play for like 2 or 3 minutes and then be perfectly fine. And so I learned that for Orlando and ended up bringing a tablet and letting him play for a couple minutes in between, because it took his mind off however that game was going.
Wow.
So, yeah, it worked out really well.
That's really smart, man. I feel like I sometimes need a little simple game to take my mind off of between rounds, man. It's tough. Do you have similar practices for yourself? Because I know you compete pretty well.
Yep.
Do you take it pretty seriously? I know that in my experience seeing you, like, you play to win, obviously, but you also are mostly there to just have a good time. Do you plan on hitting that circuit of getting competitive? And if so, do you plan on implementing the same strategies?
So I have a past in some competitive hobbies that are a little kind of off the wall. And so I was very, so I competed in remote control rock crawling cars.
Okay, sick.
Back in the like 2008 to 2010 range. And 2010, I was the National Series champion.
That's so sick.
So I traveled all over the U.S. to compete with those. And so we built our own cars. It wasn't a situation where a manufacturer built cars that we could use. We ended up building our own chassis. I had a sponsor for a chassis. I had a
Wow.
sponsor for axle parts and tires and all that stuff. So
That's so cool.
it was kind of crazy. So that worked out really well, and I enjoyed it, but I was very, very competitive at it. I played sports all the way through college, and so I have that competitive drive. And for a while, I said, I'm just going to play with my son and help him get better. But then I started sitting around for hours at a time for him to play a cup, and it was like, well, I guess I should just play. And then the adult league at the store we normally play at, they would have an odd number, and one of the store people was like, do you want to just play so nobody gets a buy? And I was like, sure, I'll play. So I started playing, a year or so ago in the store league stuff. And then I enjoyed it, and I enjoy the people that we hang out with, and I really enjoy the group that comes to play at that store and the store you hold events at.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed hanging out with that group and learning some different things and talking through different decks and stuff, because it helps me help my son be a better player. And then so I started playing challenges and stuff when he was playing, and just decided, I'm like, all right, do this for fun. I am competitive by nature, but I try really hard to just understand the same things that I help him struggle with, because he is very much my son.
All right.
So it makes it so I try and help him. The same thing he struggles. I don't need the video games and stuff. I've learned to manage that stuff on my own. But
That's good.
At 48, it makes a little bit of a difference between 48 and 12. I've learned a lot how to handle those things and to handle those situations, and to understand, I play to win, but it's not the end all be all of my life.
So. Right. Yeah, because everything seems bigger when you're small.
And
so, especially, I'm reminded of even talking to my niece and nephew who they don't play TCGs or anything, not yet. But they're in high school, and they still think that everything that goes wrong at school is the end of the world to them. So I imagine even to more of the nth degree, when you're as young as your son is, that it's even more so. And I could only imagine just being devastated from having a lost streak or anything like that. Because to be fair, I still struggle with that stuff a lot. My first time at Charlotte 2 years ago, also, I played Palkia and Teleon, which was also kind of slated to do okay. Probably a little better than Shadow Rider, but definitely not as good as Lugia V-Star at the time. And so when I went on my inevitable loss streak from it being my first major tournament period, no cup or challenge or anything, just went straight to regionals, I also experienced a lot of that negative feeling, a lot of that disheartenment, just so I can for sure see why that would be a big struggle. Did you have any strategies when you were kind of developing your competitive mentality that helped you out to mitigate those things in between rounds and to help you regulate those things? Or was it just a kind of a learned behavior as growing as a person?
Yeah, it's just kind of a learned behavior. I really I try and focus really hard on that. At any given time, I'm doing the best that I can do, and if the outcome doesn't always occur, there's got to be a reason for it, and I try and look back at how that went, and then try and figure out what I could have done differently, or if it was just literally the luck in the cards, for Pokemon especially. So
interesting. Okay, very cool. Nice. What are some of those really cool experiences as well? We've talked about some of the struggles. What are those? Do you have any stories particularly of a really cool experience of just being a Poke Dad, whether it's for you or for your son?
Definitely, seeing even at challenges with at the store you judge at or whatever.
You can name it, by the way. It's Bud City.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
if that's easier for you.
Yeah, situations. It's the single situations in the course of a day, right?
Yeah.
Whether there's a really good player in his series that's there, and he absolutely draws well and plays well, and beats that particular player because he struggles back and forth with them in a week to week challenge if we see them at multiple stores or whatever events or whatever. Watching how they handle things and watching how he handles, playing a new deck or whatever. It's all the little day-to-day things as we play through different events and stuff.
Very cool.
Specifically like he had one match in Charlotte this year against a little girl who he flipped over, and they battled. It went really well for him. He was really happy. Well, then he saw her in Orlando, and it went the opposite way. But they were laughing and giggling and having a great time playing each other, even though they were struggling playing. And she remembered him from losing to him in Charlotte, and then he remembered her, and so they were, it worked out really well. So just those little moments are the best things.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. I can totally see that.
And totally watching how his confidence has grown, and his confidence in, he has struggles with a lot of social anxiety, and watching him interact with the guys at our game stores, and girls, just the people that we play with, that he will walk up to them and say, hey, what are you playing today? Like, can I take a look at your deck? Do you have something to trade? Like, he'll like interact with them, which was not his standard 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He will sit down and play against an adult. He'll sit down and play against a kid. He doesn't really care. He just wants to have a good time and play and be friends with everybody. So it's been really nice to watch him grow as a person as we get through playing the last couple of years.
I've noticed that, man. Your son is extraordinarily confident and always so excited to play. And even like in taking it in strides with like when he takes a loss or something like that, like he'll have a moment to kind of deal with it, and then most often I've seen him just get back on the horse, and next round he's fine and having a great time playing the game again. And that's awesome to see as a judge. So I can only imagine even more so as a parent.
Yeah, he definitely has his struggles sometimes. And that's the biggest thing we've been working on now, is not building up things in his head so much that he's wanting to win so badly in a game that when something happens or he's one turn off from winning, that he doesn't completely lose that and go down to a completely low, and he can kind of brush off some of it, because it happens. Like, I mean, you watch, I came really close to winning the challenge the last time at Buzz against little Matt, and that was not a good matchup for me. And I needed one turn, and I had win in hand, and he got me on the last turn with his draw. So it happens. You just got to kind of understand and shake it off as much as possible, and then roll on. So
yeah, it's not easy being like competitive, and I think that's a conversation that like feels very entry level to this game, but it also is something to be talked about. Like, it's not easy to really be passionate about something and then have moments where you can be like, man, this thing that I really love like has me feeling kind of down right now. So I can definitely see that. Kind of more off the wall question, but I am curious to know, because you play some very interesting decks to Buzz. And so I want to know specifically if you have any Pokemon per se that have like become more of your favorites as you've played them in a deck or played them in like do you play the VGC at all?
I do not.
Okay.
That's I have a very addictive personality, and if I get really into something, like, I try and really watch that. I don't have a ton of time to sit down and play. I work really early in the morning typically, and it's a very long day, so I don't stay up real late. And after, most of my time spent with Mark when we're doing our things like after school or whatever, until he goes to bed, and I'm in bed about the same time because I'm leaving for work earlier than he's getting up for school. So it works out. But I've watched him play a little bit, but I haven't done much with the VGC.
Gotcha. I ask all that just because, like, if in case there was any, I know a lot of VGC players have had like a Pokemon on a team they've played that has become their favorite over time. And I want to know the same thing for you. If there's any that you've played in a deck that you've been like, I kind of like this guy particularly.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I kind of go with go with the flow. Like Mark and I have said the entire time, like he's always been a big fan of Gengar, and like
Nice.
I've enjoyed Gengar as well as we've kind of as something we've kind of bonded over.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be honest with you, like right now, like I really just enjoy playing with Dragapult, like, and that's been the guy that I've been, I know it's not always the greatest, and some of the new decks are really good, but I've enjoyed watching that transition and trying to make changes. And I had changed a few things that were the same as the list that just won Dortmund, and like, so we've been kind of trying to make a mix, and it's good to see some of those things work out. But I've just enjoyed playing it a lot lately, and if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. You just kind of, I just kind of roll along. I understand it's not always the best matchup, but sometimes, like at League last week when we were playing, and I ended up coming up against Raging Bolt. It's not always the best matchup, but they don't always draw well either.
That's true. That's super true. Yeah, that's super cool. I too am a big Dragapult enjoyer, a Pult cultist, if you will.
Yeah.
It's a cool deck, man, and it's getting some really cool new tools with Stellar Crown. And
I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of it. I'm sure I'll see a lot of it tomorrow when we play Challenge.
Oh, where's the challenge at?
Scott.
Okay, gotcha.
Scott's has their October challenge tomorrow.
Nice.
And Mark and I were planning on going. I played it last week and went 3-2, and then and had a really bad draw one game, and the other game was Shane actually.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well.
and then
Shane's always on top of his game, so
yeah, and he was playing Raging Bolt, so I didn't draw well with him either. But otherwise, I was pretty happy with it, and I'll play some version of it this week probably while Mark's still working out his Terrapago stuff.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on Pult, because I gotta know, are you on Radiant Alakazam or Charizard? I
have been on Radiant Alakazam pretty much the entire time.
Yes, that's the correct answer.
Yeah, I played Charizard Pult for a while, and I liked it. I have been a much bigger fan of Radiant Alakazam lately. Even when I was playing Pidgeot and stuff, I still enjoyed Radiant Alakazam, and it helped me out of a lot of situations. That I didn't have to put it down. I don't have to put it down right away, but if I have to find it later, I can find it, and then start moving some stuff around to take some plays that if people won't see it right away, they aren't expecting it.
Yeah. Well, and it gives your opponent more to keep track of too, because then. And sometimes it unfortunately does have to be a battle of mental attrition when your opponent can't keep track of like, oh, I have to make sure that these guys don't get knocked out. I have to evolve this guy sooner than I plan to. Like, especially if they're playing like a Noctowl engine, like, oh, I need to evolve that Hoot earlier than I wanted to so that my opponent doesn't knock it out. I love those. And I have enjoyed
playing. Yep, I have enjoyed playing some Banette and some other stuff, especially at Buzz. And doing pretty well with it, especially when someone flips over Charizard and looks at me and I'm like, sorry.
You just lose the game now.
And he had been playing pretty well up until that point, and doing really well. And then he was like, "What does that do?" And I was like, "Just hold on a second."
You'll see. And just wait.
Even before they had put out, Baltimore, when Mark and I had put Salvatore in, and I had added Luminion already, so that I could get pretty much guaranteed if I got forced to go second, I could get item lock off that turn. And
that was so cool.
And it was just he just looked at me and he was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, lose.
You just kind of lose now, I guess.
And I'm going to be okay with that, because sometimes I'm not going to make it, and it's okay because it doesn't always do well. But I did really enjoy seeing the Banette Gardevoir deck come up last week. I did enjoy watching some stream play, because it's not one that you see very often, and I did enjoy watching that.
It's a cool mechanic too. I think it's really cool to have something in the format that kind of makes you play entirely different. Are you a fan of
have a whole lot of options.
Control type decks?
I am not a fan of control in general.
Or control item lock, something like that.
Yeah, item lock is really the only control style deck that I would be a fan of.
Gotcha.
I do enjoy playing the game, so like I'm not a big Snorlax fan.
I don't think anybody's a real big Snorlax fan, and if you are, get off my channel.
I don't know. There was a guy at Scott's last week, the guy who won the challenge. He was a huge Snorlax fan, even had a Snorlax shirt on.
Oh, sure. Man, so you just knew sitting away from him, you're like, great, one of these wackos.
Luckily, I dodged him the entire time.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Oh, sweet.
Yep.
Cool. Very, very cool. So let's talk real briefly. You mentioned Dortmund. Do you want to kind of get into the weeds with that, or with any of the new stuff that's been revealed on PokeBeach? It's kind of your call. We can do either or.
I mean, I'm fine with Dortmund. Mark and I watched quite a bit of the stream for Dortmund, and as much as we could, and then headed to league after that.
Yeah.
So, we did watch most of that while we were out.
Did you have anybody or any decks that you were particularly rooting for? Obviously, the Bayonet Gardevoir was probably high up on your list.
It was, but I was rooting for him because he hadn't seen a lot of excitement around that deck. You know, he's been playing it for a long time, and I did like the background on him, and that there were a couple of those guys together that were playing it that weekend. I mean, honestly, I was rooting for Rahul to get an actual win.
Yeah.
You know, he's been so close for so long, and he's just playing back the same 60 for multiple tournaments and doing so well. I really wanted to see him finally get a win.
Yeah. Literally the last 3 tournaments, he's gotten top 10s and not been able to close it.
And I play Lugia some with Mark, but I am not necessarily a Lugia enjoyer.
It's okay.
So it was good. It's been good to see him do so well with the same deck and just sticking with something that, you know, sometimes doesn't do well, but he's made it work. So
yeah,
especially with the amazing run that he had. I also was pretty excited to see Goldango hit in the top 4.
Yeah, that's so surprising because Goldango feels so bad right now. But it's playable.
That was a deck that my son played for quite a while, or a similar deck. Obviously, it's a little different now, but
right.
And so I enjoyed that. Seeing that in the top few, just to see something different, right? It's not, you know, not seeing a Charizard there, not seeing Regidrago there was very, because it's not that those decks aren't good, it's just that
you get tired of them.
They aren't seeing the results right now. So I was, you know, because I've been talking. I played Charizard for a little while back a bit and enjoyed it, and it was fine. It does what it does, and it's pretty linear for the most part, just like a lot of the decks right now. And I'd rather play something that's a little more interesting to play.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's cool that in the top 8 there's only one repeat of an archetype. Like it's cool that we're kind of in this this pre-temporal forces or like pre-rotation type of format where you're seeing a bunch of different decks get play, and a lot of that has to do with Stellar Crown just coming out.
Right.
But it's so cool seeing all of this like variability in the metagame and archetypes that are so different, because even when you go a little bit past the top 8, you see immediately is Tord with Terrapagos Dusknoir, and then a little further down you see the Bayonet Guardi, and it's not till 20th place that you start seeing Charizard, and that's a whole other archetype, and then you see Palkia Noctowl at 24, my current deck that I'm favoring. Unfortunately, a Snorlax stall just did barely creep into the top 32. Let's talk about some of these deck lists real quick. So you said you're really enjoying Pult right now. What do you think about the 60 cards played by Ryuki Okada?
I really liked it. It was hard for me to feel like Dragapult was going to be consistent without some sort of other engine, but I've played a bunch with this deck now, and I really like it. I still have those spots where I don't draw well, but I feel like there's other options to get out of most of it, and not having the Pidgeot in play gives me another out that I don't have to deal with a 2-prizer floating around.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it. Granted, you know, we had already talked about putting 2 Rotoms in because I really don't enjoy prizing that, when I'm playing. But I did, I do enjoy it. And I think it's probably the best way to play it right now. It feels a lot more consistent than I expected it to.
Really? Interesting. See, I think the 2 Rotom is crazy. And I'm also very surprised that there's no Pidgeot or Xatu with this build. I guess with Sparkling Crystal, you don't really need Xatu as badly and with Crispin, but it's so strange because those are both 1-ofs and like there's no additional draw support. So in my head, I'm looking at this, and the only thing that I really see that it's like, I guess that helps sort of is like the Tatsugiri, which sure, like to be fair, like that totally helps it out a lot. I'm a big Tatsu fan. So it's just very surprising to see that kind of build. Yeah, I like it. I didn't get to watch finals quite so much as or a lot of this run, but I because I was more focused on the games that I did see. I saw the top 4 game between Stefan Ivanov and Jovan Kampen. So, but like I said, that's a cool, different take on Dragon Pulse.
Yeah, with the extra earthen vessel, it helps you get energy earlier. And between being able to move some stuff around with Radiant Alakazam if you have to, and also being able to Mindbender or whatever, the attack with Radiant Alakazam if you have to.
Yes. Mind Ruler is so cool.
Yeah, it seems to work much better than I was expecting. And the extra Rotom, if you don't need it, you just don't play it. You can use it as an Ultra Ball target. You just throw it away if you don't prize one. But if you do prize one, you really need it to get started. So if you're only running one, you get stuck, and then you don't have another draw supporter. It just makes at least for your first turn. So it definitely makes it much easier. And you always, you can always just throw it away if you don't need it.
Interesting. I can see that. I when I played Palkia and Teleon, I played with a 1-2 line of Alolan Vulpix V-Star back in Charlotte 2 years ago. So I can see definitely like that extra card, even though it feels useless. Like sometimes you just need to not prize it.
Or if they happen to get the Rotom off and you have to have a Forest Sailstone target to get rolling to really get moving, then you've got another one to get with a Nest Ball or whatever to try and bring you back in, at least so even though you're down 2 at that point and you've put another target on your back, it's just still you've got a little room to move.
Yeah, and you don't have to waste your Lumineon.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
With even that extra 20 extra hit points helps either way.
Yeah, it does.
And then you can save Lumineon for if you get into a situation where you have to use it late in the game to get a boss or whatever.
For sure.
Obviously, that is what happened in the finals match too.
Yeah.
One of the games, he dropped the Lumineon right in the last hand to get a boss to be able to knock Rahul out.
Interesting. I wish I'd been able to see that tournament. Would you change anything about this 60, do you think?
I'm really struggling with not wanting to put one Super Rod in.
Yeah.
And that's probably where I would change it, just to give myself an out in case, I hit one of those plays. It doesn't have Manaphy, which is tough. Because of the previous version I was playing, I played Manaphy either for Kyurem or for
what, Radiant Greninja?
Yes, because I got hit with that when I played it Rally Squirrel one night when we played the first Stellar Crown League weekend. I got hit with that, and I did not have one in my deck at that time, and that's one of those hard spots. But in reality, there's one Night Stretcher. It would either be another Night Stretcher to get it right back into my hand, or a Super Rod just to be able to get a few things if I have to. If they cure me and I've got energy on the board, with only having 6 energy in the deck, I try and save as much as possible. But with only one Night Stretcher, I don't have a lot of options to get it back.
Yeah. I feel like you have to really hope you don't have to early Ultra Ball anything away with this.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that I'm struggling with not having in there that I may try and find and try out for tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally see that. So are you pretty much running mostly this exact 60 you said?
This last week I've been running through this exact 60 and making a couple of thoughts here and there, but I haven't played it really enough. It's been a pretty busy week. With getting called to go to the mountains yesterday. To go work. It was a very tiring day, but it was another day that I was away that I wasn't totally expecting to. And Mark and I had a day together on Thursday. He's been off school. He had Thursday and Friday off school, so we did other stuff on Thursday. Played a little bit of Pokemon, but did some went and played disc golf and did a few other things that were just fun to be outside and do some other stuff that we haven't had time to do lately.
That's cool.
So
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you think that this list ought to maybe include a Briar? What do you think about Briar and Dragapult as a whole?
See, I played quite a bit of Briar right before this set came out, and I honestly never used it.
Really?
With Duskull, I was able to play around it, and I never felt the need that I really had to have it. And since Dragapult doesn't put up huge numbers, setting up for it was kind of difficult.
True.
And I found it much more useful to just pop a Dusknoir at the end and take the second prize card without having to worry about trying to be set up for Briar.
Yeah.
So I took it out. I just I was fine to not have it. I had taken it out before last week. Last week I was playing a Pidgeot version, and I took it out for, I want to say it might have been a Super Rod. Like I took it out for something else to try and make sure that because I just wasn't getting enough use out of it. If anything, I would technically probably play a second Crispin so that if it gets prized, I have another option.
Yeah, because this list also doesn't play Palpad.
Nope, there's no really recovery whatsoever except that one Night Stretcher.
Having one Crispin, one Roxanne, one Boss probably feels terrible without Palpad.
It does feel terrible, especially if you have to use any of those resources earlier in the game that you wouldn't normally have to.
Yeah, certainly. Interesting.
But I have it. But in reality, it does feel bad. But there are so many options to play around it that it's been pretty useful. Or it's been felt pretty good either way. I know that we're probably going to see a lot of it coming up here pretty soon because it did so well, and that's the way it works.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's also no TM Devo in it either,
which is surprising. I guess they weren't really expecting a lot of Charizard at this tournament because there was a bunch of Regidrago running around.
Yep. But also for the mirror. So
true.
If we're seeing that, I ended up losing in the end, but it saved me in the beginning. One game last week at the challenge, I ended up having to use. I got stuck. I didn't have a lot of options, and I ended up TM Devoing my opponent's Dragapult early, like way early in the game, just to buy myself another turn.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well. But it got me through, so I had game in hand again, and he was able to get what he needed to beat me, but it was much closer than it would have been if I had not had it.
Yeah. Devo's really good. It's a really good card in the sense that sometimes you do have to buy that extra turn. And it's more effective than doing that. What is Dreepy's first attack? It's way better than having to Petty Grudge, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
So
and it just he had already Radiant or Rare Candy. I didn't know if he had one in his hand. He had already Rare Candy to Dragapult, so he had one set up on the bench with a Dracloak. So knocking him, Devoing him, I was able to give him a turn back on the Dracloak, and then make sure he only had 2 Dreepies on his bench. He could go to Dracloak, but he still couldn't get a Dragapult out unless he could get a hold of a Rare Candy.
Right.
And it bought me that extra turn where he was just drawing and not attacking.
Yeah, that's so good. I've had similar stuff happen when with Charizard players when they're occasionally or no, it wasn't a Charizard. It was another Dragapult because the Dracloak is not the Dracloak. The Charmeleon is immune to Devo. But I've definitely had games where that Devo has bought me another turn. I think it's going to be a really impactful card as these big setup decks start to become more prevalent in the meta. We're starting to see some more stage 2 or stage 1 type stuff with Palkia becoming good again. Lugia still garnering a bunch of attention. Obviously with Banette and Gardevoir doing so well, and another Gardevoir in top 16 doing well. You're gonna see these big setup decks that take time but have a lot of longevity to their strategy. And I think Devo is going to be really good for those, especially considering just how good it is to buy that turn. I'm really curious as to what do you think might do well at these upcoming tournaments? Because obviously, there's some other tournaments happening on Limitless. For instance, they just had one where Dragapult Pidgeot took it again, but look a little further down and you see something like Cloth Electrode doing well. and like a Frostmoth, Frostlass, Venomoth deck. And then what is this? What am I looking at? This is just an Arceus file. Never mind. That doesn't matter. What do you think about that stuff? What do you think we'll see?
I think I'm interested to see if we start seeing any more of the Tropico stuff, but not with the DTEs. That's what Mark's been working on, and a couple other local players have been working on. And overall, I've been pretty impressed with how it works, especially if you come up against Raging Bolt or Miraidon or any of the bigger basic beat stick decks.
Yeah.
If you get that second Terapagos attack off, they've got nothing to say to you. Like they cannot attack you at all. So like you literally just hit them every turn and you're done. They have no options to get past it. So that's kind of part of the reason why I've definitely stuck with the Bayonet and the Dragapult, because I enjoy playing them, but it also gets me out of that option because I expect we'll see more of those as people start figuring out some more Terapagos stuff. Because you can only try and go first and win so many times until it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a better plan than just playing the DTE. And I think with Raging Bolt being very popular and stuff, it makes sense to try using that second attack. Even though it's, Mark's been having very good luck getting it off turn 2.
Yeah.
And, with a attach on turn 1 and a Crispin on turn 2, he can get the second attack off for 180, and then a Raging Bolt that can't touch him.
That's pretty good.
So it's hard to because that attack is not limited on your first turn going second.
True.
As well. So there's lots of
interesting.
There's lots of options there where everybody had written off that second attack. I think there's more to it. We'll see how it kind of goes, but
I wonder if
there's
it
a little
might
more to it.
Be worth running a single grass and single lightning in my Palkia build to accommodate for that, because that is right now Palkia is definitely worst matchup, and DTE feels so bad in that deck. I really am not a big fan of DTE in Terapagos at all, because you're just barely a big basic deck. You're only really a big basic deck if you've got the Bouffalants in there. And then those are a big target too, and you're also setting those up instead of more Noctowls, which feels bad. So like,
and that's
you need that damage. You need a way to deal with other Terapagos decks without like just beating back and forth. So yeah, no, I'm gonna have to see about that, because that's a really cool attack. It's reminiscent of the Ice Cue from Battle Styles, that it had a block face attack, and that one was same attack, except it wasn't limited to non-colorless. But it was any basic Pokemon, and that was my tech in Palkia and Teleon for like Lost Box. And it's a really cool effect, and especially with all these big beater decks, Miraidon and Raging Bolt, and even I guess Iron Thorns too, to an extent. That'll be really cool to check in. That's interesting.
It helps him with those matchups, and then he's been working on another little different thing that he is a big fan of, but I'm waiting to play him a little more and see how it goes. It's worked pretty well for him so far, but he's been working on a couple other things to try and see if he can make that deck a little bit better. On the not DTE side. Right? The DTE side, you go first, you beat them down fast, and it does what it's supposed to do most of the time. It's once you have all those other things in play and you have all those other targets that I can take advantage of, that it goes a lot worse for him in Dragapult and other matchups. So.
Oh yeah, I guess it's kind of tough to like make it consistent every time. And do y'all run the Dusk Noirs to kind of fix that math when it comes to Dragapult and other setup decks?
He's been starting on doing some Dusk Noir stuff. The problem is just being consistent with getting the Hoodoo and the Noctowl out, and the getting everything on his Terapagos, and then dealing with the Bouffalant, because he is still running the Bouffalants. It's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts.
So motivating him to get those into the deck has been one of my things that I've been working on him to suggest some things, because he has a very specific way that he wants to do it first, and then we start making small changes, just like Iron Leads and Red Drago or whatever. We start, hey, what do you think about this? And then he will try it, and then he likes it, or whatever. So we'll see how that discussion continues to go. But he came one turn away on all of his games last week. Didn't do well in the challenge overall, but was happy and still was playing after the games. After their challenge was over, because it was small for the seniors.
Yeah.
After their challenge was over, because they just played 3 rounds and the adults were playing 5. He was playing 3. He played with the other kids and practiced and tried some more stuff and everything afterwards, while I was still playing in the Masters.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. So it worked out good.
Have you guys considered putting in the Pidgeot package, where the 2/2 Pidgeot and the rare candy featherball?
Yeah, he's really against it. I like the idea, but again, still a situation where I let him kind of dictate how he wants to go. He's got a Bibarel line in right now, to just get himself some more cards, and he's also playing a Arceus package to be able to pick himself 2 cards.
Yeah.
And have a stage 2 attacker should he hit another Terapagos.
Ah, that's smart. So, and it's also something that if you wanted to play Glass Trumpets or that whole idea, it's a colorless Pokemon that you can attach to, and things like that you can still utilize. I guess that if you were running DTE, that would be a good benefit to be able to attach to that.
He does have 1 in there. He just doesn't have a lot of them.
Gotcha.
So
that's cool.
Yep.
I've been kind of looking around at other stuff on Limitless, and I want to know have you seen the Aegislash deck?
I have not.
Holy smokes. It is something. I wonder if can I send you the link in the Riverside chat to open in a second window? Oh no, I can't, because these are on different computers. My bad.
Where'd you find it?
It's on Limitless, played out Limitless under Tournament of Doom. It was played to a, what is that? What placement is that? To a 49th place finish. Guy went 4-3 and drop. But it is really, really cool to look at. This was a goofy tournament. Lots of cloth action. Magnezone was played as well, and that's something to look at. Iron Valiant and Blood Moon is in there too, but I'm very interested to see, because I saw a little Dark Fury thumbnail where he was a whole new way to play Control. It's got a 4-3-4 line of the what is that? Is that Paradox Rift Aegislash that has prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon's EX and V. It's got 150 HP with that ability, and the hard bashing attack for 120 for a metal and a colorless, where it's just shred. And then there's a single Aegislash EX that has
oh, there it is.
Oh wow, 1 metal is 70 for each prize card you've taken. That's pretty good. What the heck? And then Double Edged Slash for 220 for 2 metal. But no draw engine on board. It's just Tatsugiri, Cleffa, and then there's 2 Cornerstone Ogrepons in there. And your Pidgeot V for deck out prevention, I guess. And only deck using the Grand Tree. That's crazy. I feel like everybody I know has pulled a Grand Tree.
Yeah, we pulled at least one of them.
Most common rare card in Stellar Crown so far.
Yes.
This is.
I think I have at least 1, if not 2, play packs of the new Reverum EX.
I have not even seen it, to be honest. Is that the Lightning one?
Yes.
I forgot that card existed for a second.
We have a multitude of those.
Wow. Yeah, well, you'll never struggle for those, I guess.
No.
You can play it in Big Bench Miraidon. It'll be great.
Yeah. That was another one at League last week that I enjoyed. Ended up beating with Dragapult in the very end.
That's such a good feeling to beat Miraidon with Dragapult. Now,
Yep.
are you on Blood Moon at all?
In Dragapult?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
I have not. I have not gone there. I've just constantly been spreading, but I did have a temple and a Pokemon League headquarters, so I had 2 stadium bumps for them.
Okay, that makes good sense.
I still had a Lost Zone at the time, or Lost Vacuum at the time.
Nice.
So between those 3, because I knew that I needed to get rid of the stadium for them on a regular basis, and I was playing the Pidgeot at that time, so I could go get them at any time I wanted. And once I was set up, I was just taking away all their stuff, but never taking anything that I was not able to get rid of very quickly with a Radiant Alakazam.
Yeah.
So I put some down, and then move some to another Pokemon that they couldn't remove to the active, and then hit it with, then remove the stadium, and then hit them with the 200 to knock out the active, and then start putting more damage on the bench. So
interesting. That's a tough matchup if you don't have Blood Moon or Radzard.
Yep. And I had not been playing either.
Are you on a Kieran at all?
I had Kieran originally, but not right now.
What? That's surprising. I think that card is an auto-include in Dragapult right now. But hey, whatever.
When trying to fit the Dusknoir and stuff in there, there's only room for so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to have...
And you don't have that flexibility that you have with the Pidgeot build.
Yep.
Where if you need, like, I know I'm going to need a Kieran right now, you can just go get it. Like, so that I guess comes with the territory of not having as much room for the draw engine. You just kind of have to hope you can recon directive into it. Yep. Interesting. Crazy deck lists out of that tournament.
Yeah, online's really weird. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there.
I mean, very weird.
Yes. I really do. I did also enjoy the Palkia Dusknoir deck that Stefan played.
Yes.
That would be another choice that I think we've talked about building it, and I think that would probably be another choice that I would like to try out at some point.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. I'm a big Palkia enjoyer. It's no secret. I love that guy. So it's cool to see that card doing well. I'm surprised that there wasn't more Palkia Noctowl in this tournament, honestly, because like that seemed like a really good idea. But then seeing it played mostly with Dusknoir and the 1/1 Greninja EX, it's very strange. But I mean, I guess I'm into it. Excuse me.
I know I made you get up early this morning.
It's okay. I'm not mad about it. I'm normally up at this hour for work anyhow. We had a long day yesterday as well, so I'm still fighting that off.
I understand.
But it's cool to see Palkia in a new build. I'm interested to see when everybody else is going to realize that I've cracked the code on Palkia already, and that they don't need to play Chen Pao EX because that card is bad.
Yeah, I can't see that.
That's such a terrible card in Palkia, man. And crazy enough, the 24th place list has it. When you look down the roster of the 24th list, first of all, that's a really ridiculously expensive deck. That's like the most expensive deck in Pokemon right now is this Palkia Noctowl deck. But it's like you get past like the regular engine, and then it's all support Pokemon. It's your Radiant Greninja, it's your Chien-Pao, it's your Pheasantipity, your Mew, your Squawk, and your Lumineon. This guy's like, listen, I've got a big bench. I'm going to put every liability on there.
And then when you bump it, or I bump it, I'll just take them away. So.
Yes, absolutely.
I do like that idea a lot. I just haven't gotten into playing that way yet.
Yeah.
I've much more enjoyed the way that it's been going otherwise with Dragapult and everything else.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
And I built Baynet originally because my son was struggling with some control stuff, and I really wanted to give him some immersion therapy into being frustrated at home when it was a controlled environment.
Yeah, that is
that we could play through it, because he had a really bad control matchup once, at a regional, and he was really upset because we hadn't played a lot of it. I don't enjoy it. I didn't want to play it.
Yeah.
And we built it once, and it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so he didn't play against it a lot. And so I really wanted him to have a little more. So I built that. And then I enjoyed playing it. So I still remember when I brought it to Buzz the first time, and you were like, "Are you really playing this?" And I was like, yes, I am.
Yeah, it's a cool deck. I like
fun.
item lock for sure. I'm a big control head as well, and I know you said you're not particularly, but I love seeing control decks that do well. Like for instance, the brand new, where was it? I just saw it. Julius Mokrag, he got 39th at Dortmund playing Pidgeot control, and this has literally an out to every single thing. When it comes to a control deck, it's got the, I guess, what's the Terapagos for? Because you don't play the stuff for Crown Opal. But
no, it's so that
that makes no sense. Wait a minute. What was he cooking? Wait a second. I thought that was smart for a second because I was like, oh yeah, you just deny your opponent like the basic attacks. But I guess you can.
He must be using it to be able to use. No, because he's got Wellspring in there too.
What the heck? What was he cooking? Because there's also nothing in there that really requires Terras. I don't know.
And he's got one. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing.
3 Palpad also is insane behavior.
Yes.
But I guess what do you got? Sometimes you flip tails on Silene a lot.
Unless he's just trying to use everybody. He was expecting to see a lot of the stadium, so that he was planning on using it as well.
Maybe so.
Or being able to use it.
Yeah, it's cool to see those decks though, where it's like just a whole lot of like ways to frustrate your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Control's a cool thing to have in the meta. I remember when for a while there was a big scare that we were gonna get just nothing but control decks when Pidgeot control did really well.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly we're not. We're getting a lot of new archetypes that are really cool, which kind of leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about real briefly. Is these new reveals from, what is it? This is from Supercharged Breaker, so this is from Surging Sparks that we're getting next month. Yep. We're getting something just very strange. We're getting like self-mill decks, which is wild for me to kind of grasp because that's not really an archetype in Pokemon.
Right.
We're kind of getting it now with things like Bayonet Dusknoir and things where like the engine is kind of run Pokestop to discard your guys and then Night Stretcher them out and get the rare candy off of the Pokestop. So you kind of have self-mill in that way. But now we're getting. Have you seen these reveals with the Rabska and the Wo-Chien?
Mark told me a little bit about it, but I have not.
Gotcha. Basically, and for those who haven't been following along at home, there is a new Rabska that just is been revealed for Surging Sparks that has a attack that is translated as Twist Ending, where it's 40 plus damage. If there are 3 or fewer cards in your deck, this attack does 200 more damage. and then a Wo-Chien that for a grass and a colorless will do 20 damage, and if you have 3 or fewer cards in your deck, it does 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon.
I did see that one.
And that's pretty crazy. And then the second attack discards the top 3 on a pretty decent sized basic. So it's cool to see that we're getting like some self-mill archetypes. What do you think of that?
I'm always interested to see what the next level is going to be.
Yeah.
I wish we had a little more time with some of these than getting quite as quickly as we do.
Yeah.
I wish, especially like, the last set.
I don't remember what it was either. It wasn't Temporal Forces. We've been on Temporal Forces for a million years. Twilight Masquerade.
No, it was
what was the? Oh my god,
yeah.
There was one between them. It was.
Yes.
What was it called? Shrouded Fable.
Shrouded Fable. Yes.
I completely forgot we had that format.
Yeah, I wish we had a little bit more.
We had that format for like a week.
Yeah, it was super short. So.
Oh, geez.
we normally try and be a little, pay attention to stuff a little bit ahead of the game, but right now he's so on to Terapagos.
Yeah.
I want him to have a little bit of time to start working through that. I'm interested to see with using the basic energies instead of using DTEs constantly, how the new Pikachu does.
Oh man,
because I'm sure that'll be a part of it because he has the lightning available. So
true. And it takes grass too, right? Or is it lightning, psychic, water?
I think it's.
I want to say it's lightning, psychic, water.
I think I think he'll need to add one.
Yeah, it'll
just be a one.
Grass,
it'll be a one
lightning.
of.
Yeah. So it would just be he could throw in the Pikachu and add a metal type energy and be fine.
Yep, and he'd be good. So
which is
I'm
gross.
Sure
that Pikachu's gross, by the way. If you disagree, anybody watching at home, if you're a fan of this Pikachu, you're a fan of bad game design. This is objectively one of the most egregious cards we've seen in a long time, and it's not even close.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with this deck. To kind of take it a little farther forward before we start looking at crazy new archetypes. I mean, I keep right now roughly 10 decks built at any given time.
Wow.
And keep so that there's lots of times that we'll be playing, and if he gets frustrated with what he's doing or whatever, I'll be like, okay, well, I want to practice now, so I'm going to play Dragapult. You pick something from these 10 lists. Lugia, Gardevoir. I still have a great Tusk. Mill,
let's go, Mill.
Yeah. Yep. Regidrago. I don't have Charizard built right now. His Terapagos deck. I want to say there's at least one or two more.
Yeah.
That I keep kind of updated as they keep going. Like I had Miraidon built for a while.
Yeah.
I built Raging Bolt, Roaring Moon. So we have all those built with similar sleeves, so that I can just swap back and forth.
Yeah.
And not have to re-sleeve stuff, so that I can just, hey, I'm going to play Roaring Moon today and play a couple of games with his. This is how it's going to do against this. So we can kind of jump around, and if he's starting to get frustrated, he can play something else that he's not emotionally invested in.
Yeah.
So that it helps him just practice playing different archetypes.
Yeah.
And different things while becoming a better player without having to be stressed out about it, because he doesn't care about the deck much, so he doesn't care if he wins or loses. So it's just playing the game.
That's a smart way to take it too, because like when you are invested in a deck, you want to see it win, and when it doesn't, you can get super disheartening.
Yep. So yeah, so
that's
one night last week we were playing around, and he was getting frustrated, and then he took Lugia deck and played that for a little while, and we played a couple games with that, and it worked out really well. So that's kind of how I've taken to, that was my job, was to build all those decks and keep up with them and try and learn how to play them enough so that I'll just pick a box, and he's like, I'll play Charizard, okay, and then I'd pick a box and play whatever matchup he wanted, or I'd just pick one and say, well, you're going to play against this right now, and go from there, so that he got as much experience playing and different things and doing as much as possible. I did have Iron Thorns built for a little while too, but
gross.
not really an enjoyer. So
yeah, it's pretty gross. It's still cool that it's seeing play, because like until Worlds, that was not on anyone's radar, and so now it's cool that it's like at least an archetype that's seeing play. I'm curious to see how that's going to play against this new Milotic EX that got revealed, because it's got it prevents all attack done by your opponent's Terras. So that'll be cool, especially against that Pikachu.
Yes.
But yeah, that's cool to hear about, like your process with practicing and playing decks and stuff like that, because it's also such a crucial skill to be able to pivot decks on. Like if let's say you're practicing with like Lugia, and it turns out that okay, this is a really bad idea to play to this next tournament because of whatever the meta's gonna look like. So you need to play like Raging Bolt or whatever. That's not a real example or analysis of the meta. That is just a hypothetical. I know somebody's going to be waiting at home and be like, actually, if Lugia is bad, Raging Bolt is also bad. I'm like, listen, that's not what I'm here for. I'm just making an example. But yeah, having that ability to pivot is going to be really crucial.
Yeah.
And that's cool that you're
also,
helping with that.
If we come play somewhere else and I'm like, hey, you're not feeling super confident in something, just pick one of the other ones. Like,
true.
It doesn't matter when we come to a challenge at Buzz or whatever. Like we just go into it like have a good time. We're not going to play a lot of cups this year, I don't think, because his timing wise, like that's a long day.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are on Sundays. Mm-hmm. So like, it's a lot of money to invest for both of us to play all the time, and it's a lot of time to invest. I like the challenge setup a lot better, even though it's best of one.
Yeah.
So you get some frustrating games, but it's still, it works out good. And although he and I may go to Worlds this year, I don't anticipate that he's going to try and get an invite. So
yeah,
he's not that competitive of a kid that he wants to put in all the time and effort outside of playing some on the weekends and playing some with me for enjoyment, that he wants to be the best in the world. So it's just supported as much as possible, enjoy playing together. If spectator passes are available, we may end up showing up in Anaheim just to go check it all out so you can kind of see it.
That'll be cool.
But I don't anticipate he'll probably be playing in anything but side events, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and side events are cool. Do you all play GLC at all?
We have not. I've thought about it a couple times, but my background in the Pokemon universe is so short. Like, we really started with Obsidian Flames.
Okay.
In reality, like, that was when we really started, and Mark and I have been collecting. We have complete sets up through, I think I just finished Twilight Masquerade.
Okay.
And so we have complete master sets with all the promos we've been collecting all those things as it goes. So, like, that's my OCD, like, keeping up with all those sets and wanting to find all the pieces and getting those. So I don't have a lot of history. So GLC is hard for me because I don't understand. I would have to just pick a deck and buy the cards to build it, because that's not inside my realm of history with the game.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to go without that prior understanding.
And having the time to want to do that versus playing the competitive side, which really, we don't have a huge GLC audience in our area. I know we have a few guys that are into it, but we don't have a lot of tournaments and stuff, so it's not something that I've really gotten into.
True.
But I would be interested in playing it at some point. It's just
there is that
kind
kind of barrier
the time available. Yeah,
totally. I will send you a link at some point. There's a website where you can just go on and buy GLC decks. They don't sponsor the channel, so I'm not going to shout them out.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
I knew that there is a I knew of a store in the Midwest that does that. They have a huge GLC following tournament structure at their store.
Yeah.
And so I knew about that one, but there's maybe another.
Yeah. I'll send you the link, because you can just buy stuff and a couple deck lists at some point, because it's a fun format. And some of the new cards that are also coming out seem like they're going to be really cool for it. There is a Yuxi, Azelf, and Mesprit that are all really cool. They kind of work in tandem with each other. Where the Azelf does where the Yuxi does puts 2 damage on each of your opponent's Pokemon. The Azelf does 10 more damage. Does 10 plus 10 for each damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon.
Oh.
And then the Mesprit does for 2 Psychic on a basic, it just does 160, but you can only use it if you have Azelf and Yuxi on the bench. And the cards are pretty. I'm a big Lake Guardians fan, so they're cool looking.
Nice.
But yeah, those seem cool, and I think GLC will also probably be the place where this Rabska and Wo-Chien play too. They just seem really strong there. Maybe not so much in standard, but definitely in those types of places. Being able to do 120 to 2 guys when you have 3 cards left in the deck is pretty strong.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
Sweet. That's kind of most of what I wanted to cover. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about for however long?
No, I'm good.
Outstanding. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. At some point, we will have to get Mark on the show as well. Maybe have both of you guys.
He would be a big fan of that.
That's super cool. Yeah, but it'd be cool to get his perspective on things too. So, before we close out, is there is there any social medias you wanted to put of your own out there, or do you want to kind of keep that to yourself?
I stay pretty quiet. Like, I don't post a lot of stuff. most of the stuff that I post on anything social media. I have a long history. I build custom cars for a living, so most of the guys that have followed me in the past are all about seeing the work that I do on cars. So I don't do much Pokemon style content.
That's fine.
So,
do you want to shout that out just in case there's any closet car guys? Okay,
nah,
that's fine.
It's okay. I'm good.
All right. Well, it's like I said, it's been
Great.
an absolute delight having you on. Thank you for making time early in your weekend for the show. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully whenever we find out when Buzz is getting their cup, because we're supposed to get one this month, but I have no idea when.
I would talk about going to the Buzzes for their cups. Being that it's a smaller store, it makes it a little bit easier for us.
Yeah.
I do like the facility a lot, so the shop is really nice.
Yeah.
And everybody seems really great, and we have a really good group of people that plays there for the most part. So
yeah, I agree.
I've enjoyed getting to know some of those guys, and I do try and make sure. Mark has also gotten into playing Star Wars the card game.
Yes. We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah, it is not my thing. I've tried it a couple times. There's a lot going on, and I have just kind of gotten into figuring out all the Pokemon stuff. So going into another one is not really what I'm a big fan of right now. But he does play that on a weekly basis, and it works out good because normally we can get his Star Wars League in at noon on Sunday or on Saturday, and then hit Buzz for the challenge at 2, and it works out perfectly.
Yeah.
It works really good because the stores are not very far away from each other.
True. Yeah. I do love Star Wars. If anybody is out there playing Star Wars Unlimited right now, you're not alone. Randy, a good friend of the show, Judge at Get Some is also very into Star Wars.
Get Some starting a Star Wars League now too.
Are they really? That's super cool.
It's at 4:00 on Sundays.
Oh man, I still.
Mark is going to be choosing. I told him on a week-to-week basis.
He's going to be
can either choose
every week.
Yep, he's going to be choosing every week whether he wants to play Kids League or he wants to play Star Wars. I told him he can make the choice. Whatever he wants to do is fine. It's just because I'll be there probably playing either running Kids League because we didn't talk about that. So in the process of everything, the dad that was taking over, that was doing the Pokemon League at Get Some, needed some help and hasn't been able to be there. So when he's not there, or some days when he is, I end up taking over doing the Kids League and making sure that is available for the kids in our area. Sometimes we have 4, sometimes we have 12 to 15 on any given week, so it works out pretty good. So that also gave me a lot of experience in playing with random people, random decks, trying to always we don't ever let the kids have a bye unless they really want one. They either have to play one of us, or they if there's an odd number and they don't have a match against another kid. So it's been, and we just try and take it easy on them and help them through their moves and help them really learn to play the game rather than just teaching them as much as possible.
Yeah.
So.
That way, if they do get a win, it's because they earned it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. Dude, that is tough. Organizing tournaments is not easy.
It is definitely not. I do not envy you in a lot of things.
Oh man, yeah, it's not. I don't even do most of the organization on the back end either. That's the hard part. Is like making sure that stuff goes off to plan. Thank your organizers and judges at home.
Yes.
If you're watching right now, they deserve it. It's not easy out here.
No.
Oh, geez. Cool. Well, with all that said, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there.
Sounds good.
Like I said, when we figure out the cup information for Buzz, I'll let you know.
Yep,
I'm really excited for that to be the first one.
Yep.
For anybody watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a rating. It'll be really helpful for the show. Tell your friends as well. There's not much, but I think we're slowly approaching 50 subscribers for the channel, so we're getting there. My mom just found out about the podcast, so shout out to my mom, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited to see how quickly the show's kind of growing. So
cool.
Thank you again for being here, and
no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. See y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Before we begin today's episode, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the situation with Hurricane Helene. If you don't know, I am a resident in North Carolina, if you're watching from out of state, and a substantial number of people that I am close to have been affected by Hurricane Helene, as well as countless others. Some of the people in my play group with Pokemon, some of even family members, my brother-in-law and his wife. I'm leaving some links below in the description on YouTube, and I guess in the show notes or description section on Spotify. These are places that you can donate. These are local places and not big organized things, so that you know your money is going directly to Hurricane Helene relief. It's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, and I ask that if you do have the spare means, that you would consider donating to that cause for rebuilding Western North Carolina and just the Southeast as a whole. Thank you, and enjoy the show.